Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the deep wilderness of the American frontier, 1846 dusty trails, creaky wooden wagons, and a group of pioneers who have no idea that their big adventure west will end in infamy. You're about to travel with the Donner Party. Picture this: you're bouncing along in a covered wagon, the sun glaring off the plains, your hands sticky with sweat, your face coated in trail dust. The oxen grunt, the wheels creak. You're optimistic. You've got supplies, a big family, a dream of fertile farmland in California. But spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. Are you listening from a cozy bedroom in Maine or curled up in a hammock somewhere tropical? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're part of a wagon train leaving Independence, Missouri. It's late May 1846, and the air smells like river mud and dry wood. The frontier pulses with promise. The U.S. government practically begs settlers to push west into Mexican territory. California is the prize: mild weather, gold rumors, wide open land. It's manifest destiny in full swing, and you're a willing participant. What could go wrong? Your wagon is part of a group called the Reed Donner Party. You're traveling with 87 others, including George Donner and James Reed, both well-off men leading families toward a better life. You've packed everything: flour, bacon, rifles, heirloom clocks, your mother's china set. Yes, people really tried bringing porcelain across the Rockies. Priorities. The trail begins smoothly. You follow the Oregon Trail, a dirt highway worn down by countless hooves and wheels. It's summer. The prairies ripple gold, and your spirits are high. Around campfires, you share bread and jokes. Children chase prairie dogs, and older folks tell stories beneath a quilt of stars. You feel part of something epic: an American odyssey. By mid-June, you reach Fort Laramie in present-day Wyoming. It's a major outpost tense, a trading post, soldiers with muskets. Here's where you hear whispers about a shortcut: the Hastings Cutoff. A guy named Lansford Hastings is promoting a new route that veers south through the Wasatch Mountains and across the Great Salt Lake Desert. It'll shave weeks off the trip, he promises. Never mind that he's never actually taken it with wagons. Details. Historians still argue whether Hastings genuinely believed in his route or just craved notoriety. Either way, his guidebook is the 1840s version of GPS: equal parts confidence and catastrophic errors. But hey, shaving off weeks sounds good, right? The Donner Reed Party is already running late. You can almost see California on the horizon. Golden fields, ocean breezes, grapes as big as your fist. Still, not everyone agrees. Other groups continue on the proven Oregon Trail route, but your party decides to gamble. You break off near Fort Bridger in mid-July, heading southwest into terrain few wagons have ever crossed. It's a bold move and a mistake that'll echo through history. Here's a quirky tidbit: the Donner Party actually mails letters ahead to Hastings, asking if the route is passable. Hastings writes back totally fine, which is hilarious in a deeply tragic way, because he's literally scouting the trail himself at that very moment. realizing it's a logistical nightmare. Imagine someone texting, looks great while dangling from a cliff, and just like that, the terrain shifts. You leave behind the worn trail for brush-choked ravines, dense forests, and jagged slopes. Progress slows. Axles snap. Spirits sag. It's still August, though, and you think surely we'll be in California by October. One day, you crest a hill and stare out over a brutal landscape. The Wasatch Range looms like stone teeth, trees so thick they choke your wheels. Narrow canyons echo with wolves. You're chopping trees, dragging wagons inch by inch. Tempers flare. At one point, James Reed stabs a man in a fight and is banished, just tossed out of the group. Fun fact, he survives just fine and will play a key role later. But for now, your party is down a leader and morale sinks deeper than your wagon wheels. Every night, you listen to the wind sighing through pine branches, your belly a little emptier. Food stores are dwindling faster than expected. You ration, you hope, you keep trudging west. What's emotionally jarring is how normal it all still feels. Families laugh, babies cry, people fall in love. You're surrounded by human noise and routine against this massive, silent wilderness that doesn't care about your optimism. Then, just when things feel manageable, the salt flats hit. But that's for tomorrow. You stand at the edge of a desert that doesn't even try to hide its menace. It's flat, cracked, and gleams with a thin crust of salt, like it's trying to be pretty just before it kills you. This is the Great Salt Lake Desert, and you're about to cross it with wooden wagons, low water supplies, and animals that already look at you like you brought us where. The infamous Hastings Cutoff has already tested your patience through the tangled Wasatch Mountains. Trees thick as soup, rocks like jaws, endless cutting of new trail, and now this Hastings handwritten note, tacked to a forked stick, literally reads, "Take the route. Water 2 days, plenty grass," which might be true if you're a hallucinating camel. You squint at the white-hot horizon, unsure if that's water shimmering out there or just a cruel mirage. Spoiler, it's a mirage, but with no good options. Your party moves forward. The oxen groan, wheels sink slightly into the salt-crusted crust like frosting over pudding. You're rolling into the void, and then, within hours, the desert shows its teeth. Wagon wheels lock up in the sticky brine beneath the surface. The oxen stumble. Sun blisters your lips. There's no shade, just the sound of creaking wood and a rising tension you can taste in the air like metal on your tongue. At night, the desert doesn't cool. It holds heat like a furnace. You lie on salty ground, your clothes stiff with sweat, and try not to think about water. Over the next 3 days, chaos takes over. You lose over 30 oxen to dehydration and panic. They bolt, collapse, die where they stand. One woman watches her husband wander into the heat with a tin cup, never to return. Wagons have to be abandoned. People start walking. Children cry themselves hoarse. You try to suck dew from rags at dawn. It doesn't help. Here's your fringe tidbit. Some pioneers tried laying out sheets at night to catch the tiniest droplets of condensation, what they called desert dew. Desperate, yes. Effective, barely. You're counting spoonfuls of water by now. Each one a negotiation. Back in independence, This shortcut was supposed to save you 3 weeks. Instead, it costs you a month of most of your livestock and your remaining confidence in humanity. And when you finally stagger out of the salt flats near Pilot Peak, you discover a fresh insult, grass and water, just like Hastings promised, only on the other side. Classic, but you can't turn around. Too late now. The desert stole your momentum. You limp forward, dragging wagons by hand. It's September. Snow hasn't hit yet, but you feel it creeping. Mornings have frost. Birds migrate overhead in nervous flocks. The landscape changes from salt to scrubland to alpine meadow. But the damage is done. Food is running low. Oxen are walking skeletons. You're chewing leather for flavor. One morning, someone starts counting meals. You do the math. The numbers don't lie. If you don't reach California before the first snow, you'll be trapped. And if you're trapped, well, let's not go there yet. Historians still argue whether Hastings truly understood the damage his route would cause. Was he just arrogant, misled, ambitious? It's a long-standing debate, tangled in ego and frontier mythology. But what's certain is this: the shortcut kills your momentum and your trust. Still, the landscape is getting greener. Pine forests appear. Squirrels chatter in branches. You start to believe maybe it's over. You reach the Humboldt River. Water you drink. You bathe. You almost cry. For a moment, things feel almost human again. People sing around the fire. There's talk of making up for lost time. You push west, following the river toward the Sierra Nevada, unaware that the most treacherous part of your journey isn't behind you, it's lurking in the clouds ahead. And then, a knife of bad luck slices through your plans. A wagon flips in a narrow canyon. Supplies are lost. Another ox dies. You're moving slower again. Every delay tightening the noose. The Sierra Nevada rises like a fortress in the distance. In mid-October, you reach Truckee Lake, modern-day Donner Lake, and debate whether to press on or rest. You've heard snow can fall as early as October, but this year, surely not. Not this year. You pause for a night, and that night, it snows. A single day's delay, a single storm, but it's enough to change everything. You wake to silence, not peaceful silence, muted silence. Snow smothers the ground outside your tent, the wagons, the world. The sky is a flat gray lid, and everything smells like pine bark and cold iron. You step outside, crunching through 6 inches of snow, and just like that, your chances of reaching California before winter are buried beneath your boots. The Sierra Nevada looms above, draped in white, its passes quickly disappearing beneath fresh powder. This isn't just a little snowfall. This is the kind that shuts doors. You try to push forward anyway. The party packs up and trudges along the path toward the crest of the mountains, hoping it's just a fluke. Maybe it's warm on the other side. Maybe the snow will melt. You're an optimist until you reach the summit. Well, try to. The snow is waist deep by then. Oxen can't climb it. Wagons stall. You have no snowshoes, no sleds, and no visibility beyond the hood of your coat. Wind whistles between the trees like it's laughing at you. So you make camp. Not a cozy one. More like not dying today camp. Tree branches lash in the wind. You gather pine needles for bedding. You slaughter the last oxen and strip them of meat, fat, bone. The wagons are dismantled for firewood. You build crude cabins and lean-tos near Truckee Lake. Not houses, boxes with gaps between the logs that you stuff with rags and moss. The snow doesn't stop. It thickens. Weeks pass. You're stuck. By now, it's late October, and you've got about 36 people clustered near the lake families. Children, elderly. Another group is hunkered at Alder Creek, not far off. Everyone's hungry and cold and starting to say less around the fire each night. You ration the remaining food carefully, guiltily. It's mostly flour, maybe some beans. Salt pork's gone. You try boiling bark for tree soup. Not very filling, but technically food. You chew rawhide, candles, even the glue on your boots. Here's a strange historical tidbit. One child tries eating a belt, not metaphorically, literally gnawing on leather softened in water, hoping it counts as nourishment. Desperation's creeping in, even if nobody's said the word yet. Then come the deaths. First the very old, the very young. They fall silent in the night. Their shallow breathing just stops. It's gentle, but haunting. You wrap them in blankets, say soft prayers, and lay them under the snow because the ground is too frozen to dig. You start hearing coyotes at night, drawn by the smell. Or maybe it's just the wind. Hard to say. Hunger does strange things to your senses. Historians still argue whether the party could have made it over the pass before that first snowstorm if only they'd left a day earlier, skipped that wagon repair, not paused to rest. The difference between survival and starvation, it seems, can hinge on a single nail or a stubborn mule. And speaking of stubborn, there's still hope. In early December, 22 of you volunteer to leave the lake and hike west. The plan: reach Sutter's Fort, hundreds of miles away, and bring back help. You form what will become known as the Forlorn Hope. You build makeshift snowshoes from wagon parts, wrap your feet in rags, and carry the last crumbs of food. A few flakes fall as you wave goodbye. Nobody says the word good luck. It feels too heavy. For the rest left behind, each day is slower, colder. You wake with frost on your eyelashes. Children stop playing. Conversations shrink. You stay in your cabin, wrapped in every blanket you own, listening to the pop of frozen logs in the fire, wondering what day it is. Here's where it hits you. It's Christmas. You remember? Not because of celebration, but because someone mentions it in a whisper, like an afterthought. A child asks if Santa can get through snow. No one answers. And through it all, your senses become sharper. You can hear the drip of melting icicles, smell the smoke of burning boots, taste the hunger in your teeth, metallic and persistent. You start dreaming of food, not just eating, but touching it, preparing it. Stews, pies, roast meat. These visions become more real than the snow outside. And then, one morning, someone finds animal tracks. A rabbit? You set traps. Wait. Hope. You catch it. Skin it. And for one night, you feel like kings, dividing a rabbit between 20 people. A bite each, maybe two, but you still look west every day, scanning for the ones who left, hoping they made it, hoping help is coming. You tell yourself to hold on just a little longer, just until January, just until someone comes back. Time becomes an abstract thing. Days blur into nights, and nights stretch into a frozen stillness that settles into your bones. It's January now. Though no one really says so, calendars feel like a luxury. You count time in snow depth, in how many logs you have left to burn, in the growing silence from neighboring cabins. One day, someone mentions they haven't seen a bird in weeks. You haven't either. There are still moments of life children drawing on frost-covered logs with sticks, or a mother humming while scraping a final piece of hide, but they're getting rarer. Hunger is no longer a sharp pang. It's a dull, constant ache in your belly, a presence that sits with you like an unwelcome ghost. And then, the first return, a sound in the woods, not an animal, not the wind, footsteps, cracking snow. The door bursts open, and there they are, survivors from the forlorn hope, barely recognizable, frostbitten, faces sunken and wind-burned. Their breath comes in shallow gasps, and their eyes are wild. They've been gone for a month, and what they say will change everything. They tell you they crossed the mountains, reached the Sacramento Valley. People are coming. Help is coming. But their voices tremble. They also tell you what they did. Of the 22 that left, only 7 survived. And those 7, they made it by doing what nobody dares say aloud. What your mind has started whispering at night, but your mouth won't repeat. They ate the dead. There's a pause, a collective, frozen silence. No one screams, no one recoils. You just listen and nod and understand, because deep down, you already knew it was coming. Here's a fact that might chill you more than the snow. The Forlorn Hope weren't the first Americans to resort to cannibalism in desperate circumstances. In 1609 at Jamestown, colonists dug up graves to survive the starving time. It's not new, just unspeakable now. It's your turn to decide. Soon, bodies from the first snowfall begin to resurface from under the ice. Carefully, reverently, you avoid eye contact. You work in silence. There's no frenzy, no blood, just quiet acceptance. The way you might handle medicine or an old photograph. It's the final crossing, really the boundary between human taboo and survival. And once you step across, there's no going back. The meat is prepared away from the cabins. Always outside, there's a system, only from those who've already passed. No one speaks during the meals. You look at the fire, not your hands. You chew slowly, deliberately. Historians still argue how widespread the cannibalism was. Some accounts claim only the most desperate participated. Others say it was nearly universal by the end. The truth, probably somewhere in between, blurred by trauma, shame, and memory. Here's the strangest part: it works. The food, if you can call it that, gives you strength, a little warmth, a clearer head, and that's when the rescue parties begin to arrive. The first relief team reaches you in mid-February, slogging through the snow with mules and supplies. They bring dried meat, flour, blankets. Their eyes go wide when they see you, thin as sticks, faces sunken like carved masks. Children hide behind their mothers. Some just stare. They can only take a few at a time. The weakest, the smallest. The rest have to wait. And so you stay behind. Again, they promise to return. And they will. But time stretches again, and food runs out again. And the waiting becomes unbearable. You're back in that same state, half starved, half frozen, hanging on by hope and habit. One morning, you wake to find a man sitting by the fire, staring at nothing. He hasn't blinked in minutes, You call his name. He doesn't answer. He never really comes back. The cold doesn't always take people physically. And in the meantime, another body. You know what comes next. But here's the thing you still feel. You still cry. You still miss the taste of coffee. You still dream of music. One woman, delirious with hunger, hums a piano melody that no one else can hear. A child buries a pebble in the snow and tells it goodbye. Even here, there's humanity. One night, the snow glows blue under the full moon. You step outside, bones aching, breath puffing in silver clouds. And for a second, it's beautiful, silent, clean. The snowflakes look like stars fallen to earth. And you realize you're still here, just barely. You watch the mountain trail like a nervous dog, ears up, eyes twitching at the slightest sound. It's late February now, and you've already said goodbye once to the first batch of survivors taken out by rescuers. Children with hollow cheeks and soot-smudged hands, a mother carried on a stretcher, whispering thanks with lips too cracked to smile. You'd hoped help would return quickly. It doesn't. Weeks pass. The snow piles up again, just to rub it in. And now, the unthinkable is happening again. You're running out of meat. Yes, that kind again. You huddle with others in the flickering firelight, eyeing the remaining logs, calculating how long the next body might need to freeze before you can use it. No one says the word anymore. You've moved past it. Hunger scrubs language down to basics. Eat. Don't eat. Breathe. Sleep. Wake up if you can. Meanwhile, over at Alder Creek, conditions are worse. The Donner family, George, Tamsin, and their children have built rough shelters out of pine boughs and scrap wood. But George has injured his hand. An infection sets in. No antibiotics. No clean gauze, just hope and snowmelt. His wound blackens. His fever spikes. And slowly, the patriarch slips into silence. Tamsin stays by his side, refusing rescue when others arrive. She won't leave her husband, even when it means starving. That kind of loyalty, it's painful to watch. Quietly heroic, utterly doomed. Here's a curious tidbit. Tamsin Donner is said to have kept a small collection of pressed flowers. Even during this ordeal, dried petals, flattened between pages of an old book. A strange little act of defiance beauty in a place that had no right to contain it. And yet, you cling to things. Don't you A-button from home, a hand-sewn glove. Someone hums a lullaby their mother used to sing. And for one strange moment, it doesn't feel like the world is ending. Then comes the second relief. They arrive in early March, more men, more mules, more hope in their packs. But the moment they step into camp, the smell hits them. They don't say anything, but they know. They see the bones, the hollow eyes, the reluctance to meet their gaze, and the empty cooking pots that are still warm. They split up the remaining survivors. Some of you can walk, others must be carried. Again, not everyone can leave. You do the math, again and again. Tamsin Donner refuses to go. She sends her children ahead with the rescuers, tucking little Elitha's hair behind her ear with a frozen hand. Go with them, she says softly. I'll be right behind. She won't be. She chooses to stay behind with George. This time, you realize she's not choosing life. Historians still argue whether Tamsin truly believed she'd be rescued later, or whether she made a conscious decision to die beside her husband. Some say she planned to cross alone. Others think she knew exactly what she was doing. Either way, she becomes a tragic centerpiece of this frozen horror story, one of those names that survives because it didn't. As you march away from the lake finally, painfully you leave behind the last cabins, the bones, the makeshift graves. The wind bites your face, but you barely feel it anymore. Some in the group carry children on their backs. Others mutter to themselves, delirious, weak, wild-eyed. And here's something else. Among the rescuers is a man who'd once written off the party entirely. Now he's helping to carry survivors. Redemption walks beside regret. It always does. You climb through the trees, where the snow softens to slush in places. The sun stabs through pine needles like spears of gold. You squint, blinking into brightness for the first time in weeks, maybe months. Then a child collapses. The group stops. Snowflakes start falling again. It always snows when you're trying to move. The man carrying the child kneels beside him. The boy is breathing, but barely. You pass around the last bit of dried meat. No one speaks, just motion, hands, warmth, a fire built in silence. That night, someone sings a broken little tune, barely a whisper. You fall asleep, wrapped in bark and fabric and sadness. But you do sleep. You wake up and keep walking. Eventually, you see green, real green, moss on rocks, water not made of ice, then buildings, people, civilization. Sutter's Fort looms like a strange dream in the distance. You've made it, but not everyone has. The sun feels almost offensive on your skin, too bright, too warm, like it's mocking everything you've just come through. But you don't look away. You blink through it, standing just outside Sutter's Fort, dazed and hollow. Someone offers you a blanket. Someone else brings you food, which you barely recognize as food. Bread, real bread. You eat it slowly, like it might disappear. By now, it's late March. Word of the Donner Party's ordeal has spread across California like wildfire. Survivors stumble into Sacramento and San Francisco, sunken-eyed and haunted, while newspapers scramble to print every twisted detail. You become an unwilling celebrity, an object of sympathy, horror, and morbid curiosity. And here's where things start getting strange. You try to rest, but people keep knocking. Not just doctors and priests, but reporters, gawkers, strangers wanting to hear it from you. They ask what human flesh tastes like. They ask who died first. They ask what you saw. You don't answer, not because you're rude, but because how do you describe hunger that deep silence becomes your second skin? Meanwhile, more rescue teams continue pushing through the mountains. There's a third relief, a fourth, but each arrives to fewer people, more cabins, more snow-covered graves. And still, they find survivors. One of them is Louis Keseberg. Now, Keseberg is about to become the most infamous name in this entire saga. When rescuers finally reach him in April, he's alone in a cabin, surrounded by scattered bones and a pot of, well, let's just say it wasn't stew. He claims he was the last to survive. Others suggest he may have hastened that fact. Here's a disturbing twist years later. Keseberg sues one of the rescuers for defamation and wins. He spends the rest of his life haunted by whispers. Some call him a monster. Others say he was just the unlucky one left holding the story. Historians still argue whether Caseberg was guilty of murder, or merely of doing what everyone else had already done, just more openly. And for longer, truth tends to melt in the fire of public shame. Back at the fort, you begin to notice how different the world is now. You're fed, clothed, given shelter, but something inside you is off. You twitch at small sounds. You wake in the night from dreams of cracking ice. You hoard bread under your pillow without realizing it. Some people try to move on quickly. They remarry. They start farms. They tell themselves it's behind them. But then someone drops a ladle in a pot, and they flinch like they're still back in that cabin, in the snow, next to the fire made of wagon wood. Here's a lighter historical fact. For you, some survivors from the Donner Party went on to become mayors, ranchers, even local celebrities. One girl later marries a prominent businessman and throws elegant parties, but she never serves meat, ever. The children recover faster than the adults. That's what they say, but even the children carry it with them. You overhear one say, "We had to eat shoes once." Another proudly announces, "I made it out of the mountain," like it's a badge, like surviving made them special. And maybe it did. You visit the graves eventually, or what's left of them. A few wooden crosses, a hollow patch where a cabin once stood. Someone carved names into a tree with a knife. You run your fingers over the bark and realize it's not deep enough to last. In a few decades, it'll be gone, just like most of the story. But not all. People will always talk about the cannibalism. That's the part that sticks in the throat of history. What they won't always say out loud, but what you never forget is the slow unraveling before that moment. The hunger, the cold, the snow that never stopped falling, and the strange beauty, sometimes, like when someone gave you the last piece of their biscuit, or when the wind stopped just long enough to let you hear the trees creaking like old bones. You carry it with you, not in shame but in layers, like rings in a tree. Every year, it's there. You don't point to it, but it doesn't leave. And then, one day, someone says the words, "You were with the Donners, weren't you?" You nod, quietly, "Yes." You say, "I was." You're back among the living now, but something inside you doesn't quite return. Maybe it never will. Even as the world begins to turn again, markets buzzing, towns springing up, gold rumors floating like pollen through the air, you're still carrying the mountains in your bones. Spring 1847 turns to summer. California heats up. The Sierra Nevada shrugs off its snow, and grass grows again around the places where you almost died. The cabins at Truckee Lake, soon renamed Donner Lake, of course begin to rot quietly under sun and rain. Leftover items, a shoe buckle, a carved spoon, are scooped up by scavengers or lost to time. And yet, you find yourself wanting to go back, not just physically, but mentally, to understand, to figure out how something like that happened, how you happened. So you start asking around, talking to other survivors, listening to what they remember or claim to. But here's the catch. Everyone's memory is a little slippery. Some say Stanton sacrificed himself without complaint. Others insist he was hallucinating by the end, whispering to imaginary friends. Some swear that the Breens were the kindest, always sharing. Others accuse them of hoarding food. Even the timeline shifts who died first, who held out the longest, who crossed the line and when. Every survivor has their version. Historians still argue whether these contradictions come from trauma, shame, or the natural decay of human memory. Maybe all three. Eyewitness accounts are notoriously fuzzy, especially when filtered through starvation and blizzards. One quirky detail that resurfaces years later: someone insists a man tried to eat his moccasins again even after cannibalism had begun. Said he just missed the taste of hide. That's not in the official records, of course, but it sticks with you. As the stories ripple outward, you realize how fast truth can get buried under myth. The press distorts it, books romanticize it, pulp novels, dime store thrillers. Everyone wants their own Donner version. By the 1850s, it's already become legend, but you know better. You were there, and let's be honest, no one really wants the truth. Not the whole truth. It doesn't sell as well. They want drama, horror, blood on snow. They want to ask you if it tasted like pork. They never want to hear about the silence, or how you cried the first time you had to cut into someone you used to laugh with. So you go quiet again. Others try to write memoirs. Some speak to historians, offering carefully curated versions of events. A few profit from it. One man tours with a lecture series. Another becomes a curiosity in saloons. You don't blame them. When you've stared into that kind of abyss, a little attention might feel like validation, but there are consequences. Louis Kieseberg. Remember him, the one they found alone. Surrounded by bones, he becomes the designated villain. He sues. Yes, but the court of public opinion never lets him go. He's called the Cannibal of California for the rest of his life. Some say he started bitter. Others say he became bitter. Either way, he dies poor and alone. You pass him once. Years later, in Sacramento, he doesn't look up. And then there's the children, the ones who grew up with the label Donner Kid. You think it might break them, but instead, some become stronger. Like Elitha Donner, she becomes a teacher, teaches children how to read, how to write their own stories. Maybe so they won't have to carry someone else's version of events. One boy, just 5 during the ordeal, later builds a ranch on land not far from the site. When asked why, he says, "I didn't want it to own me," even years later. When railroads finally punch through the Sierras and you can cross in a day what took you months, the trail still haunts you. You visit once, standing where the cabins used to be. There's nothing left, just wind and lake water and pine needles crunching underfoot. You look down and swear you can still hear the fire crackling in the hearth. You don't stay long, but you do pick up a pine cone. You carry it home and place it on your mantle, a quiet nod to everything you left behind. Later, when your children ask about it, you just say, "That's from a place I once survived." Years pass, then decades, and you begin to wonder if the world has really moved on, or if it's just found new ways to forget. You age in a state where gold fever rises, where cities bloom out of nowhere, where railroads cut through mountains like butter. California grows fast, loud, glittering, but you, one of the quiet few who walked through its darkest birth canal, carry a very different version of the story, one they don't put on postcards. By now, it's the 1870s. The country is healing from Civil War wounds, and westward expansion is speeding up again. More settlers, more stories, more versions of what happened in those snowy woods. You attend the occasional reunion if you feel up to it. Faces older, voices cracked, but still there. You hold hands across a table with someone you thought had died that winter. Turns out they were thinking the same about you. You all sit around, sipping coffee, laughing when you can, and pausing too long after certain questions. One woman pulls out a faded cloth doll. She made it, she says, just like me. You nod. Because really, what else is there to say? The Donner name, of course, has become a permanent fixture in American folklore. Streets named after them, the lake, even a pass. Tourists drive through it now in heated cars, snapping selfies at signs that say Donner Summit without thinking twice. Some chuckle about cannibals. Some don't even realize the gravity beneath the name. Historians still argue whether the Donner Party's disaster was a tragedy of arrogance, a failure of leadership, or simply bad luck mountains too high, snow too deep, timing too late. Most agree on one thing: the shortcut, Hastings Cutoff, was never used again. And then, one summer, you're invited to speak. It's a historical society meeting, small town hall, wooden chairs, maybe 20 people. Most came for the pie. You stand at the front, adjusting your collar, heart beating faster than expected. The room quiets. You tell them the truth. Not the gory parts, not the drama they expect. Just the colds, the stillness, the way snowflakes looked like stars when they landed in your hair. You tell them about sharing the last biscuit, about holding a child's hand through the night. You leave out the rest. You've earned that right. When it ends, someone stands up and claps. Then another. You smile, tired, but warm. For once, it feels like they heard you. Outside, the sun dips behind the trees. A chill returns to the air. You pull your coat tighter and walk home slowly, gravel crunching beneath your boots. The sky above is soft and purple. Later that night, you sit on your porch, pine cones still on the mantel inside, and you think about how it all could have gone differently. If someone had warned you, if the snow came late, if that shortcut hadn't been taken. But if doesn't build cabins or cook meals, you survived. That's the story, and it belongs to you. The trail fades behind you now. The snow, the silence, the hollow ache of hunger all dissolve into the hush of memory. Your breathing slows. The mountain air softens, and the flickering images of cabins, pine trees, and long-forgotten footsteps settle gently at the edges of your thoughts. You feel the weight lift, not all at once, but like snow melting in spring. One drop, then another, then lightness. You're safe now. No more blizzards, no more brittle bones, just the soft hum of time passing, of wounds scabbing over, of life returning to the world like moss on stone. The fire has burned low. The cold has lifted. Even the lake, Donner Lake, looks peaceful now. A sheet of glass holding secrets beneath its surface. Let it rest, and let yourself rest too. Breathe in, breathe out. You're not in the mountains anymore. You're not carving paths through snowdrifts or counting crumbs in your pocket. You're here in a warm room, wrapped in quiet, listening to a story that you didn't have to live through to feel. And that's the beauty of stories. They hold things for us, so we don't have to carry them alone. So, as you drift off, just know this: what happened out there in those woods wasn't just about death. It was about endurance, kindness, loyalty, and the strange, fragile light that flickers even in the darkest winter. Sleep well, traveler, you've made it through. The story is over. See you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams.